And hello, everyone, and welcome back to my series where I interview candidates and Democrats across the South. And today I am joined by Mr. Tom McMahan. And Tom wears many hats, and I will let him tell you a little about himself and the hats that he wears. Hello, Tom.
Well, hey, Jake, how's it going? How things on the other side of Sand Mountain?
Well, things are good over here. We are dreading the thought of who our next possible governor is, but we are going to have a spirited Democratic primary for governor and hopefully defeat Tommy Tuberville in 2026. How about your side of Sand Mountain?
I'm hoping that Tuberville does not win the nomination, but who knows? But over here, it's going pretty well. We have a lot of special elections over here. We're having like one or two right now, I think, in the different parts of Georgia. But we had the big statewide one a few weeks ago where we clobbered the Republicans pretty hard for the two public service commission races, and Georgia Power, which of course is the Georgia version of Alabama Power, the Southern company, was the villain in that one, and they got pretty much roasted because of the stuff that they've been doing with the Vogtle nuclear plant and all the rate hikes. I don't know if they've been raising rates as much in Alabama as they have been in Georgia, but they've been raising them a lot over here, while at the same time not raising them for like companies. The industrial rate's a lot lower than the consumer rate, that sort of thing. So the affordability thing became a big thing and worked in our advantage. I think it's going to continue to work in Democrats' advantage in
Are y'all
26, probably everywhere. Yeah.
um I know that Alabama is a hotbed for data centers. Is Georgia
Yeah.
experiencing?
I think there are a lot of southern states who are trying to get those things. And there's getting to be more and more pushback by the public, including conservative parts of the public too. I don't. A lot of people don't want those things around. They use up too much energy, too much water, too much. They're noisy. They don't really provide that many jobs. There's really nothing good about them other than the fact that the big companies, that the big IT company, whatever you want to call them, are the ones who are trying to push those through. And like over here, Governor Kemp has never met a corporation he wouldn't bow to. So yeah, that's going on over here too, quite a bit.
Of course, on this side of the state line, we have a data center in Jackson County for Google.
Mm.
So that is a concern. I must ask you, though, about your congresswoman. I am very offended by everyone trying to claim that Marjorie Taylor Greene is a changed woman. I don't see it.
No. This is part revenge, I think. I think that's what it started as. I think now she's sort of crafting a more moderate persona because she wants to run for Senate in 28. I think that's becoming more the thing now. She wanted to run for Senate this upcoming year, but Trump nixed it. And I think that's what set her off on the revenge tour that she started doing uh, well, in several ways. And finally that ruptured the mutual awful society that they had going with each other. But now I think she's trying to craft herself to run against Warnock in 28. So I think it's all fake. I mean, she in one way, I think she's a true believer in a lot of this conspiratorial nonsense, but in another way, she's always been very conscious of the image that she projects because she is about nothing but herself.
Well,
That's my take on it. So
Well, the whole story of how she came to represent the 14th district is because she originally was going to run in 2020 in the 6th
yeah,
district. Then
right,
Tom Graves, out of nowhere, announces his retirement, and she jumps in, beats a brain surgeon in the Republican
right,
primary because of COVID. It was a runoff, and it's off to the races. Um,
right.
and
Well, that and the fact that she did run once and got just destroyed where she lived around Alpharetta, and so she knew she could never win there. And I don't. I think it's just like her. She is not that popular in the 14th. she thinks she is, but every time she's been elected, if you look at the numbers, she is the least voted upon Republican in the district. It's a very Republican district. I mean, Herschel Walker did better than her last time. Herschel Walker didn't do all that great either. So she is not that popular. She's not as popular as she thinks. And I just she's not going to win. If she does run for Senate, I hope to God she gets the nomination for the Republican parties because we can check Warnock off for another 6 years if she does. She is not going to beat him in 28 if the Republicans are dumb enough to put her in the driver's seat of that. So,
I must ask about her specifically. Do you believe she's in any danger of losing her primary?
well, I don't. I know. I think there's two people that have actually filed. And I don't think either one of them have gained any traction. From what I've understood and what I've read and heard, the local Republicans, the like committee, the chairs, those kind of people, have pretty much sided with her over Trump. I think Trump's lame duck status is starting to really set in with the Republicans. He can't run again. It's starting to be that nobody wants him to be around anymore because everything's going so badly for them. His numbers are just horrible. And, Republicans are not coming out to vote. Uh, I think the Republican Party really seriously needs to worry about next year in a lot of places because Republicans are just not coming out to vote. They didn't come out to vote much here in Georgia a few weeks ago. And that's why one of the big reasons why they got clobbered. And if you pair that with the fact that Democrats are coming out in a fairly high rate, that's a recipe for a disaster for the Republicans at this point. There's just nothing. What is there to be proud of at this point? If you're definitely a MAGA, I mean, today he was sitting there fawning all over the big socialist communist that they had made the new mayor of New York out to be, and he's just all buddy buddy with him. I'm like, that's going to play like a horror show on Fox News and other places. So I just think Trump's losing it. He doesn't have the ability to have MAGA just do whatever he wants anymore, and they know he's going away. His mental faculties are declining. I just think it's like an all around thumbs down for him. I think it could very well be a disaster for the Republicans next year.
Speaking of, her primary, that kind of
No,
borders another question. Do you think that probably, I think most people, when Trump announced he wanted someone to primary her, they thought of
right.
Colt Moore because he's kind of
Probably, yeah,
the embodiment of Marjorie Taylor Greene on a local level. Do you think
right.
he waits to 28 to run for that open house seat if she primaries, runs for the Senate?
Yeah, I mean, if he were smart, he would do that. I don't think he's got to hear the same thing I'm hearing, that the local Republicans are not turning on her. If they were turning on her, I could see him doing it now. I just don't think they're doing that, and whoever does try to primary her is probably not going to win. But I think again, she's coming out of this weaker. There are going to be MAGA people who are going to turn on her because of this. And some of them have never really liked her anyway. So that opens the door for somebody like Sean Harris to have a chance. In the recent uh, election, the Democrats got well up into the 40% vote level up here in 14th district, and that was with a fairly low money kind of race. And so Sean's going to have the money to organize well up here. So we'll see what happens. I think it's not a open and shut case next year.
You know, that's one of the biggest things is having a credible candidate on the ballot.
Right.
And having a candidate who can go out there and go toe to toe, and especially when you have an extremely polarizing candidate.
Hmm.
It was one of the frustrating things when Mo Brooks was our congressman that Democrats rarely put up a credible candidate against Mo Brooks, and he would just scamper off with 60 or 70% of the vote. When you've
Right.
got Huntsville just sitting right there waiting to be flipped.
Right.
I've got to ask you about your governor's race.
Okay.
Y'all have got a jam-packed Democratic primary.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Both of them, both sides are just packed. I mean, I have no idea who's going to win either party's nomination at this point. I think Raffensperger probably has the best chance on the Republican side, but that's not a guarantee. And I think if I had to guess, well, I can't even guess on the Democratic side. I don't know that anybody has really sort of nudged ahead. I know that the former mayor of Atlanta, uh, whose name is for some reason escaping me at the moment,
Lance Bottoms
Bottoms, yeah. I know that she has probably the highest name recognition, especially in the metro area. So that's going to give her an advantage. I think there's definitely going to be a runoff because Georgia always has runoffs about everything, it seems like. And I think she would most likely be one of the candidates in the runoff. But I think maybe she has a ceiling that I don't know that she can get to 50% even, in a runoff. So I don't know. It's going to depend on who that second person is, if my theory is right about who that is. I just don't know who that is at this point. I like a young guy by the name of Jason Estevez. He's a state senator. I think I'm looking for younger candidates right now. I'm not that I'm young. I'm 59, but I just think young will work well in the next election for everybody in any state. And I like the fact that he's in his late 30s, mid to late 30s. I like that idea that we need newer, younger people. But there are uh, Mike Thurman could definitely be in the runoff and win it. So I honestly, I just can't. I can't even pick one at this point. My only pick is I think Bottoms will make the runoff, and that's it. So
has Duncan done any has he caught fire or is there still a lot of apprehension?
there's a lot of people who are not going to vote for him. But with the field crowded, if he does really well outside of Atlanta, I mean, he's from Forsyth County, so he could do really well. He could do well if he can drag some people over to vote in the Democratic primary who might normally vote in the Republican primary. And then he can do really well, say in North Georgia or other parts of Atlanta. I could see him making a runoff. Again, I don't know that he may have a ceiling that he can't. It may just be too soon for him. That some people are just not going to trust him yet because he just switched over. I was kind of surprised that he went right away to run for governor. I thought he might wait a little bit because it's just a little, it seems like a little too early, but we'll see.
Run for executive committee of the party, run for, maybe a state
I
senate
I
seat.
thought he'd be run for lieutenant governor. You've already been lieutenant governor. That way you could be on the ticket to help support the party, and then you're a step away from becoming governor again. And so I thought that would be a smart move, but he went straight to governor. So we'll see. You know.
Um, and you said that you believe Raffensperger on the Republican side, if you had to pick one, do you, I mean, Trump hates that man.
Yeah, yeah.
You and I don't, is he going to be able to overcome that?
Oh, I mean, that's just my educated guess. I thought last time when he ran for reelection as Secretary of State that the whole Trump thing would probably get him, but he ran against a fairly crowded field and he won without even a runoff. He got just above 50% and won. And then he cruised to victory in the general election. He's the one I worry about the most. If I think we got a good chance to win a lot of the state offices next year in Georgia. Raffensperger might disrupt that a little bit because he does get crossover voting. He has not been. I will say that he's not been a terrible Secretary of State. He did stand up and do his job. I'm not like in love with the guy, but he presents a problem that I think all the other ones don't. The Buddy Carters and all those. I don't see those as a problem. In fact, I'm hoping that one of them will win. I just think Raffensperger is the one that for Georgians who are serious, or Georgia Republicans who are serious next year about wanting to win, he's the one that they should vote for. We'll see. You know.
Um, Speaking also of, other races, you've got Secretary of State. Do you feel good about that, or do you think maybe Sterling might be the odds-on favorite to win the Republican
H-
nomination.
Again, he's going to be sort of in the same class as Raffensperger if he gets the nomination, which I feel probably he will. He'll be tough to beat. I do like on our side. I haven't met. There's two candidates. I haven't met one of them yet, but I really like this. Again, with a young candidate, we have a guy named Adrian Consineri, who's an activist. He's in his mid to late 20s. Uh, he was at our fundraiser. He's been to Dade County twice. He showed up at Sean's town hall the other night, and he's going around the state. He's impressing a lot of people. So I like to see the fact that he's just new on the scene. Whether he can beat Sterling, I don't know, but that will be a tough race, I think, for us. But you know that next year is going to be weird. There's going to be wins on both sides, I think, which is unusual. Usually you get like one or all the other. I think it's really going to be split up next year to some extent. So that's going to be strange.
Um, Speaking of, we'll talk a little about the Senate. Obviously, on the Democratic side, the
Hmm.
nomination is sewn up by the current incumbent Senator John
Oh yeah,
Ossoff.
yeah.
But on the Republican side, you've got Collins and,
Hmm.
oh God, the other one's name, um, the other congressman that's running, King.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, who do you think is leading in that race?
Probably Collins, which you know, I don't worry about that one so much anymore. I think the one guy who could have beat Ossoff was Kemp. And I think Kemp took one look at what was coming next year and just thought, nah, I'm not risking my political capital on that. I think Kemp wants to either run for Senate or run for president, but he just decided not to do that in 26. So I think Ossoff has the definite advantage over anybody else on the Republican side. But it's Georgia, so it will be reasonably close. But I think also I feel good about Ossoff winning.
I really thought on the night that Trump got reelected that you could end the Kemp for Senate talk for this reason.
Yeah.
He knows the midterm would be coming.
Hmm.
And why not just when your term as governor ends, a couple days later announce you're running for president?
Well, right, and that may be exactly what he's going to do, because it's going to be a rough row to hoe for Republicans in 28 too. 26 and 28 are probably not going to be great election years for Republicans.
And
Uh, yeah, but Kemp has a record to run on. You know, he's not been horrible. I don't like a lot of his decisions. He can go around bragging about how good Georgia is for business, blah, blah, blah. Georgia's terrible for workers. But you know, he does have something to brag on that will impress Republicans. So he could step into that nomination and perhaps win it in 28. But I don't think he would beat somebody like uh, uh, the California governor. I'm bad with names tonight. Uh,
Newsom.
Newsom, yeah, thank you. I see him like every day on something, but I think he's definitely gotten the advantage on our side. But that's still a couple of years out, so we'll see. You know,
Well, you talk about a couple years out. I think if you had asked someone in this time in 2005, who's going to be the two nominees for president, on the Republican and Democrat side, I think most Democrats would have said most likely Hillary Clinton, and
hmm.
most Republicans would have said George Allen. Well, George Allen got beaten
Right,
his run for Senate reelection up in Virginia in 2006. And there
right,
was this guy from Illinois named Barack Obama who came around and
right.
ended the Hillary campaign. So, I think that we probably know the name of the next Democrat and Republican nominee,
Hmm.
but it's, in my opinion, not as obvious as we think.
But yeah, you're right. There are several governors who have a chance. Illinois governor, Kentucky governor. I mean, you can go down the list of several Democratic governors who have a chance. I think it's going to come from the governors. One of them. I don't know which one. I just think Newsom has positioned himself well, just because he's become the sort of the chief fighter for the Democrats, and I think that's what a lot of Democrats want to see right now.
Oh
So
God, yes. There's a pollster. Her name's Kristen Soltis Anderson, and she's kind
Hmm.
of a moderate Republican, and she had a podcast for a long time, and she talked about how, and she was more of the Paul Ryan, Mitt Romney wing of the party, and she
Right,
said that when she would go into these polling sessions, and people finally figured out that she was a Republican and opened up honestly about what they liked about Trump, it was that he was a fighter, that,
right,
he might be saying stupid shit, but,
right,
at least he was fighting. And I think that's what Democrats have been frustrated for so long is we don't see our side. We believe fighting as hard as we should be, and you got Newsom out here just exposing Trump for all the insanity that he brings to the table. Like most of the tweets that Newsom puts out are just Trump's posts changing out the names. And
right.
um, so that Senate race, I think I agree with you. I was worried about that Senate race, thinking Kamala was going to win because I thought then Kemp would for sure run for Senate.
Yeah,
But when Trump won, my fear about that election kind of faded a little bit, and I began to say, okay, that one I think's pretty safe. Um,
all right.
since you have two congressmen running in that race, giving up their seats, do you have strong contenders in those districts?
Well, I can't really tell you that. I haven't really looked at those districts yet. I know there's been a problem with our state party as far as not supporting, not really doing a good job finding good candidates at the congressional level and then supporting them adequately. I think that changes now that we have a new chair. Charlie Bailey seems to be doing much better at raising money and getting the party reorganized. So I think we will do better, but I can't really. I spend so much time focusing just local and regional and district wide. I am on the rural uh, council for the state party. I'm the vice chair, so I do hear about stuff. But I just feel I don't feel really like confident enough to really tell you that this person or that person is going to be a good candidate in those districts. I just haven't had a chance to look at them yet. So,
Well, I I believe those are tough districts.
yeah, yeah.
They are very Republican districts. But there's a lady running in one of them who ran for governor in 2022. Who, if the Republicans are crazy enough to nominate her, Miss Candace or Gladys or
Yeah,
something,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
if they're crazy enough to nominate her, we might have an opening there. Um,
She got like 3% of the vote or something like that, and
I
then claimed the election was rigged.
I
I'm
want
just
to
like, good God, you know.
I want to give you a wild statistic about that election.
Right.
David Perdue was closer to her percentage of the vote, a former United States Senator, than he was Brian Kemp.
Yeah.
So, and this was a woman that was running around, for people who don't know, with a bus in Georgia that
Hmm.
said God, guns, and babies.
Right.
Um,
Well, Georgia, that still works in many parts of Georgia, but I think just the fact that she's just a loon, that everybody can kind of see that, you know, that's not going to sell if you have legitimate candidates to choose from. So,
I think the only reason Marjorie Taylor Greene won is because it was the COVID primary. If it had been a real normal election cycle, all of that crazy stuff she had said before she ever ran to office, Republicans would have released in an onslaught against her, and she wouldn't have got the nomination. I think Bobert's the same way. I think the only way they
right.
were ever going to win is when in the COVID year.
Well, you know, Northwest Georgia has a history of electing some pretty bizarre people. I don't say that with pride. I'm just saying that as a fact. Long before Marjorie Taylor Greene came along, we got Larry McDonald back in the 70s and 80s before the Russians shot him down. I mean, that was that whole episode, that whole thing was just bizarre. I mean, if you think all this stuff that's going on bizarre now, you have the guy who is the president of the John Birch Society, who's a Democrat, by the way, uh, running and winning Congress, going on this anti-communist crusade, and then being shot down by the Soviet Union. He was on a commercial airliner. They didn't. I'm pretty sure they didn't shoot it down because he was on it. But just that whole thing happening like that, it's just like we have some weird stuff. We always have had some weird stuff over here. I don't know. It's just it never ends. It seems like I keep hoping one day we'll actually like become normal people and do better. Because we have a lot of good people here. They just have there's just some crazy ideas that float around in these parts, and sometimes they win. So okay,
Well, one of Georgia's great governors came from northern Georgia, although it was the northeast
yeah,
side of Georgia. Uh,
right,
Governor Miller is from North Georgia,
yeah,
Young Harris. Um,
yeah.
I
Oh
must
yeah, I mean, yeah, we used to vote Democratic. Well, when I was a kid, everybody was still a Democrat around here, although it was a different flavor of Democrat, but still, I remember that, and I see some of the same things happening now that I saw happening back then in reverse. I see the same precinct here in my county that first went Republican. Now it's becoming like more and more Democratic faster than all the other precincts. And so I'm beginning to see those little telltale signs that maybe we're starting to break through a little bit more up here, that maybe the crazy has just gotten enough and people are starting to look for something, more sane. And so I'm hoping that's the case. It'll be a while. We're gonna have to keep working on it, but we're making progress, and that's encouraging to see.
have y'all seen a growth in Dade County since the last census in population?
No, in fact, we had a decline. I think the Day, Chattooga, and Walker all declined a little bit. Now, some people have argued that that was a bad census take, and maybe it was. I don't know. But I kind of think it was a decline because Day County has never grown that much. We're in the Chattanooga metro area, but we're just far enough away from Chattanooga that we've never gotten the spillover growth that say Catoosa and Walker County have. Um, so and we've always had this argument within this county. There's about half the people here who don't want it to change. They just want it to stay small and rural. And the other half of the people kind of want at least some progress and change. And we've never sort of made up our minds about that as a county. So we've stayed kind of small and out of the way. But I do think the population is growing now. I just don't think in that 10-year period it did not because the tornadoes in 2011 caused a lot of people to leave, and I just don't think we ever quite recovered from that by the time we got to 2020. I think we have. I think we are now, but it's a very slow growth. So,
That was a terrible, terrible day.
oh yeah,
Scariest
yeah,
day.
it's one of those days you'll remember if you live through it. It's I sat here without power, standing with my patio door open as that tornado that came out of Alabama hit Trenton in the afternoon. I could hear it. I mean, I'm far enough away from Trenton. It wasn't even raining outside, but it was deadly quiet, and you could hear in the distance that sort of rumble. And I'm thinking, oh, and so yeah, that was a bizarre, crazy day. So,
I stood in my front yard here at the house, and we live right across this road from railroad tracks. And I saw this spinning, like, funnel. And I'm
hmm,
like, and it was getting closer to the ground. And I'm like, I've seen that somewhere before. And then it clicked in my mind. I had just seen a tornado form and come down on television hitting Coleman. And I'm like, oh my God, that's a tornado touching down. And I ran in the house and got in the basement, and it hit the park here in Stevenson and began its
yeah,
trek towards Bridgeport. So yeah, that's the scariest day of my life. We that and at my
yeah,
home.
that one, yeah, the one in that hit Sand Mountain came up Sand Mountain from Rainsville, the EF5, uh, that that came into Georgia right above where my sister lives. She lives right across the state line in Alabama, in Sulphur Springs. It came up Sand Mountain, crossed over into Fox Mountain into Georgia, dropped down into Rising Fawn, and that, but it was dissipating so rapidly at that point, it just barely made it to Rising Fawn, and that, I'm thankful because that thing was heading right for where I live. If it had kept going, it would have gone right up Lookout Mountain, sort of, and where I was, and I'm not, thankfully that did not make it that far.
Uh,
Alabama's really got got you guys are tornado. You got the tornadoes going on, man. So and it seems to be getting worse every year too. So
I am convinced that Rainsville, Henniger, and Section, all of those cities have tornado magnets under the city because anytime there's a storm, it seems like that those cities get hit. Um,
mhm.
Speaking of local races, you have a great candidate running for Georgia State Senate in your area, Jack,
Yeah,
who is running against Colton Moore. Maybe tell us a
right.
little about Jack and his, unfortunately, his opposition.
Okay, well, Colton Moore, I think most people have probably heard of him. Uh, he's uh, let's see, he's in his mid to late 20s now. I guess he's in his late 20s. He's just I always jokingly refer to him as Mini Marge. He kind of caught that grift. Everything in the right wing now is a grift. It's some way of making money. He got in with the GRA crowd, the Georgia Republican Assembly, that's now under investigation and is falling apart. He got in really heavy with them. They supported him a great deal. Now he does not have their support because they're under investigation. They had a big Ponzi scheme going, lots of fraud.
We got a
So
state auditor tied up in that mess.
yeah, so he now that I don't think it's going to touch him because he was just receiving money from it. I don't think he was actually in the day-to-day operations or anything like that. But so yeah, he's made something of a certain level of notoriety for himself. And Jack is a professor at UTC, a professor of communications. He's fairly new to politics, although he's about ready to retire as a professor, but he's fairly new to politics, and so Jack is trying to, present himself as sort of anti-Colton. If you don't like the crazy, go with somebody sane, moderate, that kind of thing. And so hopefully we can make some inroads because there's Colton Moore, not surprisingly, has some baggage that people don't even really know about yet. But if you live around here, you kind of do know about. And nobody's ever really exploited that. So I'm going to work with Jack to see if we can't get some of that out there so people can start to hear about the real Colton Moore because it's not pretty at times, some of the things he's done. And so we'll see. But I'm hoping Jack will do well. We just recently picked up a state house candidate, and it looks like we're going to have either one or two local candidates. We don't have too many local elections next year, but we'll have a couple. So we're doing quite well as far as getting candidates going out. People are really coming out. I think you'll see that in Alabama too. I think people will want to run. If you guys will you don't even have to go searching for it, but if you do a little shaking around, I think there are going to be people who want to run. So we'll see.
We we had, I think, maybe three contested congressional elections last year in Alabama,
Hmm.
and Democrats won two of them. Now, I always have to preface this by saying that the two we won, we were fairly confident we were going to win. One of
Yeah,
them was a redrawn district that, because Alabama's state legislature, imagine this, discriminated against African Americans.
right.
I know that's going to shock everyone. Um,
Mhm.
and the other is the was the existing uh, congressional district that we held in the seventh. But we have, I believe, contested primaries on the Democratic side in every congressional district in the state. We have,
Good.
in my district, we have three incredible candidates running. We have an educator running. She holds a doctorate in education. We have a veteran running, and we have a business owner. So just great candidates. In the fourth district, which is the most Republican district in the country, we have two great Democrats running for that. So it's a plentiful time. We have candidates running for most statewide offices. A couple of them are running unopposed in the primary, but hey, that's good because they can focus
Yeah.
on the general
Right.
election. We have candidates running for state Supreme Court, Public Service Commission, um, and we'll have elections for our, state executive committee, which really needs an overhaul, and hopefully, one of the people speaking right now will be a part of that overhaul. So
Yeah.
I I'm really hopeful for our future next year in Alabama. I also think, talking about Tommy Tuberville, I think Tommy Tuberville's incredibly unpopular. Um,
Hmm.
Tuberville has already rubbed Republicans in the state the wrong way. He has no real credible opposition in the primary as of yet, but a lot of Republicans are offended by the fact that he's acting like this is a coronation. He's not returning their
Yeah.
calls. He's not appearing at local Republican meetings. He's just meeting with big dollar donors in closed door events. And then with Tuberville, you also have the question of does he meet the residency requirement? And most people
Yeah.
believe there's going to be a challenge to that, which in Alabama can only come during the qualifying period. So,
During or
and that,
after? Can it be after? Can it be after? Or is it just like I know over here we have like a week to qualify. So somebody has to challenge it in in that time period, I guess. Or,
so in Alabama, qualifying is going to run, I think, on the Republican side for 13 days, and on the Democratic side, I think we're running for 3 weeks. So it's
okay.
a different time frame for each party. It just
Okay.
has a definite close date.
Yeah.
Um, but on the Republican side, it has to come during that window
Okay. Okay.
now, um, and it's an internal challenge. So, but afterwards, anybody can challenge, is my understanding.
Okay.
And so the Republicans they're gonna have a mess on their hand because Tuberville. There's a real easy way for him to prove Alabama residency. Um, Florida doesn't have a state income tax. So if he can
Right.
produce 7 state income tax returns from Alabama, he's in the good. But
Right.
there's a he's not going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Um, I have you said that you're the rural chair. Um,
Vice chair.
how
Vice
are
chair.
y'all
Yeah.
do how are y'all doing with active parties across the state?
You mean committees like in each
Yes.
county, that kind of thing? No. Well, there's some work there to do. Georgia's got just an enormous number of counties. We're 159. And so, whereas Alabama tends to have larger, I think Alabama's probably got like 50 or 60 counties. They tend to be larger, like
67.
Jackson. Yeah, Jackson, DeKalb are pretty big counties. We've got a lot of tiny counties over here, like Dade, or even smaller than Dade. We've got right now 39 counties that don't have active Democratic committees. We are working on that. I did some texting, for the PSC election into all 39 of those uh, counties. 157 of our 159 counties shifted Democrat during the PSC election. Only two shifted just a tiny bit Republican. One of those two was one of those 39 counties, but it almost made it. So we're trying to work on those until we get people in there who will step up and volunteer to get the committees reconstituted. Again, it takes a little bit of a process there to do that. So we're hoping to find some of those people. We have to also work on our CD, our congressional district level. I don't particularly like the way we have that structured, but you need a good congressional district chair in Georgia and probably in every other state too. We do not have that throughout the state, and that's something I think Charlie is also trying to remedy over the next year or two. So we're trying to work on those kinds of things and get the party structure developed again in a way that it's been allowed to kind of atrophy over the past 20 or 30 years. The party became way too much Atlanta centric, metro centric. It kind of let the rural areas languish a bit, and some of those counties that I mentioned, the 39 counties that don't have committees, they're actually majority Democratic counties. So it's not a question of them being too Republican or anything like. And there's no county up here in the north that doesn't have a committee. We're the most Republican part of the state, I imagine, us and maybe South Central Georgia. But so we're in pretty good shape up here. But in South Georgia, you have a lot of really small counties, and it's usually a size thing with that in Georgia because you're talking about counties less than 10,000 people. Uh, we have one county that has less than 2,000 people. And when you have counties that small, the whole structure of your local government begins to fall apart, not just the parties, or you have trouble getting civic organizations, you have trouble getting anything sustained. And so the size thing is a problem, but also the party organization thing has been a problem. And so we're trying to work hard on getting the party a true 159 county party again, which it used to be, but that was allowed to sort of die. But now we're trying to work our way back up to that again. I'm hoping over the next few years we'll be able to get at least most of those counties reorganized.
We recently over the summer in Alabama had calls for celebration. We've got an active county in all 67 counties, and like you
Good.
talked about, Alabama does have larger counties
Yeah.
than Georgia, and I think a lot of the issue over here was the fact that the counties that were the last few to come back online are overwhelmingly Republican counties.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and the biggest problem we have over here is our state party cannot get its act together. We have a lot of influence, people on the state committee who are only in it for themselves,
Yeah.
and we have a lot of infighting, and it's just, quite frankly, sad to watch sometimes because I think with the growth that we're having, especially in places like Huntsville and Mobile, there's potential for Democrats to win if we just
Yeah.
marshal our resources.
Right.
So, um, and you said that you have some candidates for local office. What offices are y'all going to be contesting?
Well, we have a five-man, five-person commission board and a five-person school board, both of which are partisan. Two of the four districts. We have four districts plus a overall at large, and two of the four are up in the gubernatorial year. So one of those is the northern part of the county at North Dade, and the other one is Sand Mountain. Sand Mountain is our weakest point, so we're not going to. I doubt we'll have candidates there, but we will have candidates for both the commissioners race and the school board race in North Dade, and state
Um,
house and state senate. So
Talking about the PSC,
yeah,
y'all really pulled off a tremendous victory on that. And I
right.
will say this, there was hardly any national attention paid to that race. Was that
No.
intentional?
Well, I think the race that always gets the attention in the year after the presidential race is Virginia because it's right next to DC for one thing, but it's also I lived in Virginia for 10 years. I love the state, but uh, it used to be a very Republican state. It swung over now. It's becoming more and more Democratic, but it's still one of those states that can swing either way, and so it's a good bellwether state for how the wind is blowing. So I understand why they focus on Virginia. Most people don't even know what a public service commission is. And that's including people who live in states that have them. I don't know if you saw the Hank Green video that he did, but that probably got 1 million views. That probably taught a lot of people what a public service commission is and what it does. Uh, so yeah, there's no attention paid to that. I felt good all along that I thought we were going to win those two races just because of the way things were structured. I thought it had the Democratic advantage because there's going to be a low turnout. There was going to be municipal races going on. So we had kind of built-in advantage, but I was thinking by built-in advantage, we were going to win like maybe 52 or 53% of the vote. Uh, and when the early voting start, I keep track day by day using the party database about who's voting. Now I obviously don't know who's voting for who precisely, but you can kind of tell, especially in a race like that, the how many Democrats have voted, how many Republicans have voted, that sort of thing. And I could tell early on that I kept coming up with numbers like 65%, 63%. I'm like, this is too high. I was like, I'm like, no, my estimates here are too high. We're not going to get in the 60s. We'll get maybe in the mid to upper 50s if we have a good night. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm just getting too high. Well, it turned out we had 65% of the vote in the early vote, and we ended up with 63% of the vote, which is what my little model was predicting all along. So I was like, wow. I mean, that surprised me to the point where I didn't even believe my own model. I was like, there's no way we're going to get 60+%, but we did. I mean, so that, yeah, when Republicans talk about, well, the Democrats had an advantage, that is true. We did have an advantage, but we had like a 53% advantage. A 63% win is an ass kicking. And that's what it was. It was just a pure old ass kicking because Democrats came out to vote and Republicans didn't. And I think again we're going to see that pattern. We've seen that pattern all year. We're going to see it next year. Next year there will be more people voting, of course, but it will be interesting to see just how much MAGA will come out to vote now that Trump is fading into the sunset. I don't think they're going to come out and vote in high numbers.
Well, I just want to say I want Donald Trump to go to every congressional district and hug the congressional candidates and talk about how they're behind him 100%. So we
The
can
pro-
put out the ad saying if you're pissed off about the high grocery prices, if you're pissed off about paying more for, common everyday items, you can thank your congressman who ain't doing jack diddly squat to stop
right.
Trump's illegal tariffs. And you know, who
Well,
knows how the
according to
Supreme
Trump,
Court's gonna rule?
uh, I think they'll probably strike them down. I think so. I think there's just no legal case for what he's doing. There's no emergency. That's just crap. So yeah, I think but you know what? That will help a little bit. But prices are just they've been high because of the pandemic and the instability of all that caused, and they just haven't come stabilized yet. And they may be stabilizing at a higher place. Just that may just be the way it is, and everybody's got to adjust to it. But people have not adjusted yet. So the same thing that got us last year, I think it's going to get the Republicans next year. So
I work in retail. And I totally agree about the pandemic thing, but I will tell people this. Prices were beginning to inch up in 2017 and 2018
mhm.
during Trump's first term with those tariffs that he put on during the first term. So this has been a 8-year slow rolling snowball. Uh,
Yeah,
and and Biden came into office at the worst possible time. He came in as the pandemic was at its worst. He had that
mhm.
shit disaster to deal with in Afghanistan
All right,
that Trump put him in, and he had, just record crime inching up. And all he stabilized the ship. And this country, for some reason, gave the keys back to the car to the guy that lit the damn match. I, I,
all right.
I will never in my life understand and be able to wrap my head around what happened on election night 2024.
Well, I think, yeah, I feel the same way. I just think I'm old enough to remember the 70s. Carter, that's what brought Carter down. Inflation will turn people. Uh, they'll just blame whoever's in power. Yeah, I'm not saying Donald Trump necessarily created this inflation to where it's at now. I think again, I think a lot of it is just the fact that it's this unsettling, huge event that we went through that we've quickly forgotten about. Everybody's like, you have to remind them, oh yeah, we went through that thing, right? Yeah. So, but Biden did have the prices going down. They were slowly going down. They were still high, but they were slowly going down. Now they're going back up again slowly, and that is Trump. This part of it is definitely Trump with the tariffs because there's no rhyme or reason to this. There's no justification for it. That's why I think the Supreme Court will strike it down. That will help, but it's not going to fix it all because the prices I think are just going to be higher until everybody kind of gets used to it. But the problem now, Biden was also creating jobs and job wages were going up. Job creation is pretty much stalled out again. I mean, it instantly under Trump just kind of fell out. And again, that's a tariff thing. And I don't know that that's going to recover because if you take things like agriculture, countries have already switched over, like soybeans. They're not buying them from us anymore. They're going to buy more from other countries that grow them. And that's just not going to all roll back to us immediately as soon as the Supreme Court strikes all that down. It may take a while for us to regain those markets of various kinds again. And so this is going to do damage this is kind of like a Brexit level stupidity. I can't remember. Again, I'm bad with names tonight, but the British commentator that you see so much on YouTube and other places, James something.
O'Brien.
Bob Brown, yeah. He talks about he coined the phrase that Britain is the first country to ever impose economic sanctions on itself with Brexit. And we've kind of done the same thing with tariffs here with Trump. We kind of imposed an economic sanction against us that we're going to be paying for a while. So hopefully they'll strike it down and we'll get it back to normal as fast as we can. We'll see.
One- Talking about, Brexit and James O'Brien, one of the
Yeah,
greatest clips ever, and you just want to pound your head against the wall, is he had a caller that was talking about the reason she was going to vote for Brexit was because apparently she believed the EU had posed some kind of restrictions on eating fish and chips wrapped in newspaper.
right.
And 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 you're like, and she was talking about how tough things were for her economically, and he's like, you do realize that this thing you're voting for, Brexit, is going to make it 10 times harder on you.
Yeah,
And Biden, I thought one of the things I think Biden made a mistake in, granted, they should have talked about their economic successes, but it would have helped if Joe Biden would have walked out there and said, I know the economic numbers under me that we brag about them, but I understand people are hurting out there. I
yeah,
understand that inflation is hurting people, and be assured that here in the White House, we feel and hear your concerns.
yeah,
And for some reason, also, the Biden campaign decided to run on an economic message when they should have ran a campaign brought to you by the letter A and talked about abortion every single day of the week and talked about it twice on Sunday because Dobbs was a dagger into the back of Republicans.
hmm
And Democrats did well all across the country running on Dobbs.
right. Yeah,
Um,
looking back, there's definitely things they could have done better. I think Biden's age, of course, played a role. If he'd have come out better on the debate, where he seemed to be, just he could answer questions easily and all that. So I've never understood that part. Why weren't they preparing? Why didn't they prepare his schedule? Because he was old. I mean, Biden looked old. That certainly wasn't helping. He spoke like an old man. But if he'd just come out and sort of been normal on that debate, I think we had a different election at that point. And the fact that he sort of short circuited there was just something that we had to scramble to correct. And then Harris came along. She did the best she could, I thought. I know that some people, the more they, some for independents, I think the more they saw her, the less a lot of them liked her. Uh, and because her numbers kind of peaked and they started kind of going down again. So yeah, but I mean, that was just, it was a bad year all around. And hopefully I'm looking forward now to much better year next year, I'm hoping. So
Well, I will say this as we wrap up. I remember watching that debate and I saw Joe Biden walking out very hauntingly and I heard his frail voice and I'm like, "Oh dear Christ."
right,
And I'm like, "This is going to be a disaster." And
right.
and he got better as the debate went on. And the
Yeah,
focus of that debate should have been Donald Trump's fire hose of lies. But
right,
the focus was, is the president mentally all there? It
right.
and that that is one of the worst nights I've ever, besides election night. I'm like,
Hmm.
oh dear. Well, I thank
Yeah.
you, Tom, for joining us. We had a good discussion about Democrats in the South and in the rural areas. And I hope to have you on again soon. In the midterm year, we'll definitely chat back up. I thank you all. I don't have any other candidates to announce for my viewers at this time, but we're going to certainly be into contact with candidates running across the state and South. And if you're a candidate and you're watching this and you're a Democrat, get in contact with me and we'll have you on.
All right. Thanks a lot for having me on, Joe.